Ever get the feeling that things in the corporate world aren't always, how should I say, totally transparent? We're diving into a tactic that's got everyone talking, well, whispering really soft layoffs.
They're definitely more veiled, that's for sure. Companies trying to downsize but wanting to keep it on the down low.
Right, like, shh, nothing to see here, while people are quietly being nudged out. And what's really got people's attention is that even giants like Amazon are doing it.
Oh, absolutely. Their whole back to the office thing, textbook example. But before we get to Amazon specifically, what exactly is a soft layoff?
Yeah, I think a lot of people listening have probably experienced something like this, but maybe just haven't heard the term.
It's like this. Instead of directly laying people off, companies kind of engineer the situation so employees decide to leave on their own.
So instead of that dreaded "you're fired," it's more like, here's a new policy that, well, you might not love so much, so.
Exactly. Big policy changes out of nowhere, shuffling teams around, even moving the office by themselves. Maybe not a huge deal, but together. Kind of adds up, don't you think?
Oh, for sure. It's like they're making it just uncomfortable enough that people self-select out. So why all the sneaky stuff? Why not just be upfront about needing to let people go?
Two big reasons.
Yeah.
Cost and PR layoffs are expensive. Severance packages, unemployment, not to mention the potential hit to their reputation, all that bad press.
So it's all about the optics, huh? Protecting the bottom line and their image.
A lot of the time, yep. But here's the thing. What seems like a win for the company in the short term can backfire big time down the road.
Speaking of potential backfires, let's talk about Amazon. What's going on with them?
Okay, rewind back to the pandemic. Like everyone else, they went all in on remote work. Win-win, right? Employees get flexibility. Amazon saves on office space.
And probably a major selling point for recruiting, too, I'd imagine.
Absolutely. But fast forward to now, and suddenly it's back to the office. Everyone, well, almost everyone. There are a few exceptions, but this sudden switch feels like a bait and switch to a lot of people, especially those who were hired when remote work was all the rage.
It's one thing to make a policy change. It's another to completely reverse course like that.
Exactly. And their whole approach just screams, my way or the highway, which is a recipe for disaster when it comes to morale. And because it directly impacts whether people can even stay at the company, yeah, that's a soft layoff tactic for sure.
I can see where this could really blow up in their faces. What are the potential consequences of this kind of approach for both employees and the companies themselves?
Well, the blog post we looked at for today's deep dive had some really interesting points that we should unpack, starting with company culture.
When we talk about company culture taking a hit from all this, what are we really talking about? What does that actually look like?
Imagine you're working somewhere, and there's this constant, restructuring happening, new policies every other week. Never know what's going to change next.
Oh, I bet that gets old fast. Like living in a constant state of what if?
Right, and that's how you get a workplace full of suspicion and uncertainty. Morale goes down, productivity tanks, nobody's happy.
Makes total sense. It's
Yeah.
hard to be a team player when you're worried you'll be shown the door.
Totally. It's like they're trying to avoid the bad press of a layoff, but they're creating this whole other problem.
Right. Talk about shooting yourself in the foot. And speaking of problems, earlier you mentioned how this whole soft layoff thing makes it harder to get good people to work for you. What's that about?
Oh, yeah, it's huge. Think about it. Nowadays, word gets around fast. Glassdoor, LinkedIn, it's like everyone's got a megaphone.
Yeah, those sites are like the ultimate gossip mill for jobs.
Exactly. So if your company gets known for these shady tactics, good luck attracting top talent.
And the people you already have might jump ship before they get pushed.
Sadly, yeah, it creates this self-fulfilling prophecy. So back to Amazon. They've always been seen as this super innovative, pretty decent place to work. Could this backfire on them?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Totally. Will this hurt their image in the long run? Guess we'll see. But it shows how important it is for companies to be straight up with their people, you know? Trust matters more than ever these days.
Couldn't agree more. So what about everyone listening right now? How can they tell if their company might be pulling a soft layoff? Any red flags to watch out for?
That's the tough part, because it's not usually one big thing, more like a bunch of little things. Pay attention to any big policy changes, especially stuff that affects your everyday work.
Okay, so be observant.
Totally. Like, have there been a bunch of restructurings lately? Projects suddenly getting killed for no reason? Those could be warning signs.
Those are really good examples. What's the number one most important piece of advice for anyone who's listening? How can people protect themselves?
Don't be afraid to talk to each other. Compare notes with your coworkers. See if anyone else has noticed things, or if there are rumors flying around.
Yeah, there's power in numbers, right? Two
Yeah.
heads are better than one when it comes to this kind of thing.
Definitely. And don't forget, write things down. If you've noticed things changing, make a note of it. Dates, details, that kind of stuff could be helpful later on.
It's about connecting those dots, noticing those patterns.
Exactly. And at the end of the day, you got to look out for number one. Your career, your well-being, that's what matters. Don't be afraid to walk away if something doesn't feel right.
This whole conversation has been a real eye-opener, you know? I feel like a lot of us have probably encountered this kind of thing at some point without even realizing what it was.
It's way more common than people think, that's for sure.
Absolutely. So, as we wrap up here, what's the one big takeaway you want listeners to remember from all of this?
I think the biggest thing is that companies might think they're being clever with these soft layoff tactics, but they come with a real cost. Morale takes a hit, company culture suffers, and in the end, their reputation suffers. It's short-sighted, really.
It makes you wonder, with so many people working remotely these days and the job market changing so fast, could this become even more common in the future?
It's a good question. And it really highlights how important it is for everyone, companies and employees, to be open and honest with each other.
Couldn't agree more. Well, that's all the time we have for today's deep dive into the world of soft layoffs. Huge thanks to our expert for breaking this all down for us.
Glad to be here.
And to everyone listening, stay curious, stay informed, and most importantly, look out for yourselves. We'll see you next time.